Hello and welcome to Nothing to Wear. Lee here. Now today I've got Lucinda Pikkat. She has over 15 years experience in PR and trend forecasting, and Lucinda doesn't just know fashion, she understands the exact DNA of what makes a brand quote unquote cool.
You have to do it. You live for fashion.
Lucinda, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to talk to someone so cool about this topic.
I don't know about that, Lee.
But first, there's two questions I ask every new guest. And the first one is, can you describe your style in 3 words?
So I love this question. And I've gone with country club chic. I love the old money trend, but I just despise the name of it. It's sort of like we're cosplaying into this social class or like social system. So anyways, I love the old money vibe, which I'm trying to emulate, but it's sort of country club's an extension of that and a bit more of like a sport infused look. So I've got the baseball cap, the Sumbers on, and I find this is how I generally dress all the time.
You look comfortable, but like you have maybe dropped the kids off and then you're going to go have a spot of brunch before tennis or something,
right?
But like,
because that's what I'm always doing. I'm always attending country clubs, right? We all do.
I really like that, and that is the most unique 3 words someone has ever brought.
Admittedly, I do live in the country, so maybe it's like a little bit more suited, but it is comfy. I am literally doing that, dropping the kids off. I can get around in this.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I try and do. Country club chic.
That's very cool. Now, the theory that we think is pretty spot on for most people, we've got a wardrobe of clothes, but there's 10% of those items, also might be shoes and accessories, that we reach for more than the other stuff. So what's in your 10%?
This is so true, and I'm quite conscious of this. So at the beginning of each week, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to just wear shorts this week if weather permits, and I'd bring out like the Bermuda shorts, or this week I'm in pants, hence why I'm in these pants this week.
You plan this at the start of the week? In your head?
In my head, because I've heard this theory that we only wear 10%, so I just want to try and wear everything if possible. So if not though, because obviously it's not always like that, we rush out the door, it is always jeans, any type of jeans, like any colour or cut, and a cap. I'm always in a baseball cap. Even in here, walking in today, I had a baseball cap on.
Oh, but you make it look so cool. I look like Jerry Seinfeld.
I kind of like looking like Jerry Seinfeld. That was going to be one of my things, 90s sitcom. I kind of like that vibe as well. I love the rule as well, where if you've got 2 out of the 3 things put together is how you look put together. So outfit, makeup, hair.
Yes.
I'm always sort of a considered outfit. Makeup, I love makeup. And then the hair's always falls short. So I always whack on a cap if it's greasy or wet or whatever.
That's so clever. Yeah, I worked out that's where I sometimes fall down. If I'm doing like a matching set or something, but I haven't done my hair and makeup, I look like I'm in my pajamas. Yeah. But if I do my hair and makeup properly and wear the right shoes and a matching set looks great.
Yeah.
But once I picked up my son from school, he goes, "Mummy, why are you in your pajamas?" I was like, oh, rude.
Yeah.
Now, today, this is such an interesting topic, and I'm really excited to get your thoughts because we're going to dissect what makes a fashion brand, quote unquote, cool. So let's start by defining what cool means. It can mean different things to different people. What makes a brand cool to you? Is it their marketing? Is it the zeitgeist? Is it because they're underground? Like, what do you think, if you can kind of sum it up,
I think
that means?
I think back in the day, so like 80s, 90s, or before social media. So Instagram was 2010 era.
Yes.
So before online, a cool brand was sort of interpreted as a subculture or a subset of people, right? And if they'd create a brand. So you had your grungy, your surf culture really popped off in the 90s in Australia. That sort of gritty underground where there was like a if you know essence to it was what made something cool. And you couldn't manufacture that if you weren't part of that group.
And it was more sort of word of mouth, which
Absolutely.
I guess social media is now, sort of. But you're right. You couldn't just find it out. You couldn't reverse Google image. And that's what made it kind of cool because it was elusive.
That's exactly right. So I think nowadays, if you could sort of define it, it's easier to become cool online, I guess, because you've got more exposure. You're keeping up with the trends, so you can kind of tap into different areas of culture. But it's trying to emulate that if you know element of mystery around your brand and almost straddling like commercial mainstream and that early adopters. So balancing that strike just in between before getting too commercialised.
That is so true. And it's interesting because, I asked you your 3 words. No one has ever said cool. I don't want to look cool, but when I like a brand or an item, in my head, I'm like, oh, I like that. That's cool. But everyone has a different version of what that might be.
So true.
But I don't want to look cool, but I know when I think something's cool.
Yeah, that is 100%.
You
Like,
know?
it is sort of its own identity. Like, I think cool, but you're not buying into, say, so rebellious is like a Vivienne Westwood, or even like a more grungy Subi. Cool, you don't necessarily default it with a brand. It's almost like an undercurrent feeling you get from a brand.
Yes, totally. And when I think of the word cool, because I'm in my 40s with a child, you have children, I think cool is like for the kids.
Yeah.
But it's not. Cool just means they're doing something right.
That's right. And
Right?
you want to tap into it and be part of that. Like, it's almost being part of that brand's story, I think. So, and
Yeah, like you identify with it somehow.
100%. Yeah.
Interesting. So what do you think are the elements that gives a brand like coolness, like effortlessness or aspirational? Do you think it's marketing? Do you think it's who's wearing it? Do you think it's, price point? I think a lot of people go, Prada and Givenchy, they're cool because they're expensive and so people aspire. But you don't have to spend money. Like, cool doesn't mean expensive.
100%. Yeah.
So what makes a brand cool? That's so hard.
So, yeah, I think there's a few different elements at play. I think the first is cultural relevancy. It has to have some sort of relevance to what's going on in the world. Socially, environmentally, politically even. So looking at sort of a bird's eye view at those macro trends of what's going on and if there's some relevance to your brand. So, for example, at the moment, people are traveling more than ever. Vacation and travel are huge macro trends.
Yep.
So is that relevant to your brand? Or, for example, fitness and wellness has trickled down into this Gorp core, which sort of is why Solomon's have popped off.
Oh, my
and
God.
New Balance.
I
Like, they
know.
didn't just come out of anywhere. It's from something that's happening in the zeitgeist. So, number one is your brand has to have some sort of cultural relevance. 2 is that brand identity and a really strong brand identity. And a lot of that comes down to your values, who you are, what you stand for as a brand. The founders play such a big part in this. And I've seen so many brands, Sass and Bide's an example, where they sold to Myer and then look, they just go downhill because they didn't have Sarah Jane and Heidi Middleton.
Yes.
At the essence, they lived and breathed that brand. Same with Subi.
Yes.
The 3 boys, hot DJ, single surf guys. Like,
Yes.
they made that brand cool.
It's so true. And now we have more visibility and access to the behind the scenes of brands on social media. They want to know the who, not just the what.
1,000%.
Yeah. And when you were saying like culturally what's happening, I think, lockdown was quite a long time ago, thank goodness. But I think, high heels never really recovered that much. And so as a result, flatter shoes have never been cooler or there hasn't never been more options because, yes, we still wear a heel depending on, our life. But culturally, brands went, hey, we've got to make more flats and cool flats and, trainers. And it's
athleisure
interesting.
wear. That all sort of stemmed from COVID.
Yes, thank God. And I'm glad it's here to stay in various ways.
Yeah, you're right. Sort of fashion pivots with culture and depending on what's going on.
Yes.
Brand identity is a big one. And that's also actually like your branding and logo is cool. I've had clients come to me and say, oh, we want to be cool. But if the product's not there, it's not there.
You can't force it.
Yeah.
I also liked your point on travel because, living's expensive at the moment, but we do a lot of studies here at Mamma Mia with, the whole Australian audience and non-audience of Mamma Mia. We do kind of a section of everything that's happening in the world and in their lives. And although everyone's feeling the pinch, most people are prioritizing budget to travel. And so it's true, you're seeing cool, comfy, versatile clothes that can be worn literally on the plane, but then on your trip. And because, we don't all have heaps of cash to splash right now, but people are still wanting those adventures and then fashion is following that.
That's exactly right. And also dressing for the vacation as well, which I love.
Oh my God, me too. When I go away, I just pack 10,000 outfits and wear 2, but I think I'm packing for like
and
a
you
photo
turn
shoot.
into a different person.
Yes,
as
I
well.
love Holiday Lee. She's so much fun.
A third, so you've got your brand identity, but that's different to your actual product. That's more having a distinctive aesthetic. So one of the things I love doing with clients is holding up photos or images of product from different Australian brands. Age, Zimmerman, Gorman, you should be able to identify that brand from one image.
Agreed.
So having a distinctive look is really important. So making sure you stand out, because at the moment everything's so same.
And then there's dupes, which I understand
Yeah.
because, the democratization of shopping, not everyone can afford fancy things, but let's not get the exact weird shaped button that brand has on a cheaper one, because it's, there's
That's
a
right.
line. And I love knowing that age, but then I see something else. I'm like, oh, is that age or not?
Yeah.
Whereas, Alamaze at the moment, I can always tell it's Alamaze, but it might be copied. It's interesting, isn't
It's
it? You want to
hard.
have something different.
Yeah.
Funny you also say that, because I was shopping on the Iconic last night, because of course I was, and I was looking for a brand, but I couldn't remember what. And I was like, I'll go through the A to Z.
Yeah.
And how many brands start with M was so popular.
Right.
And a few other letters.
Yeah.
And I think I got to U and there was like 4 brands. And I was like, well, no, it wasn't you, because there was a lot. One of those end letters, there was like 4 brands. And I was like, well, if I ever started a brand, I would choose that letter because it's different.
There's your point of difference.
So authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
How do brands do that? And also, what is authenticity and how does that relate to coolness? Like being authentic, people can see around fake
Totally.
marketing and, a lot of the sustainability, particularly, some seem like lip service, some seem really authentic.
Yeah.
Do you think shoppers care about authenticity?
Yeah, and you can almost feel it. It's a subconscious feeling you get from a brand. I hate the word, like everyone says authentic, be more authentic online, but it is true, and we all sort of resonate and look for that naturally, I find.
Yeah.
I think that authenticity stems from back to that founder. And if you've got a strong purpose about why you're doing something to start with, so every brand, just back to using Sass and Bite as an example, they started at Portobello Markets in London. They were selling sort of customised distressed jeans at
I
the markets.
saved up for my first pair of Sass and By jeans, and this was when lay-by existed, and I had to drive to Chatswood every few weeks to give them $20.
Yes.
Oh my God, the coolness and the authenticity.
That's exactly right. And Bettina Lianos.
Yes.
Them recently, that little yellow tag.
Oh, and when
Sass
you know,
and
you
Bite.
know.
You know. That's right.
But what about the bigger brands? Say our listeners are going to their local Westfield, so it's not so much kind of the labels that we know, but maybe more the chain stores. Can they be authentic or can they be cool?
I think they're never going to be, because they're so overly commercialized, that subculture vibe. It doesn't mean, back to that number 3, that distinctive aesthetic or product even.
Yeah.
You see, like, even is it Kmart, Big W,
Oh.
you see their products really popping off at the moment.
Killing
That's what
it.
can bring them back into that zeitgeist. Are they
Yes.
ever going to be sort of that
Yeah.
it brand, if you know
So
you
as a
know,
brand, no, but an item?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
And then
Yeah.
there's, as a woman, I don't know, there's just such a joy of finding a great Big W jean or a Kmart top, because it's an affordable brand, but it's not quote unquote cool. But if you find a cool thing in that store, you're
Yeah.
like, everyone, I got this from Kmart.
Right, and the pride in that. Remember
Yes.
back in the day at school, you'd never want anyone to know you were wearing a brand like that. But
Oh,
now,
God, no.
if you find a bargain, you want
Yeah.
everyone to know.
Oh, remember when it was Mufti Day and you're like, what am I going to wear? I'm
The
going to wear my
stress.
Stussy t-shirt. Oh my gosh. Oh no. Will Mum take me to the shops?
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any fashion brands right now that you think are really nailing this? They're very cool culturally or just are on your radar?
So Subi's really top of mind at the moment because they showed at Australian Fashion Week this year. After I think they were founded in 1999, 2000. So 25 years later, just sustaining and maintaining. They didn't actually have relevance all that
I was going to say,
time.
I feel like they ebbed and flowed.
Yeah.
They fell off my radar. And my husband loves a sample sale, always goes to the Subi sample sale. But lately, like in the last 2 years, he's been going to the non-samples, just shopping Subi. And we were overseas. We went into the Subi store in London. And then I was like, oh, Subi. And then I'm like, oh, Subi. It's so cool again. I
That's
got
right.
a really great little sweat the other day. Like, it's back.
And that's right. And they went through a few different changes of hands. And then they got bought out by General Pants and they got Pip Edwards back on. So this new, fresh team on board. And I think one of their taglines at the moment is shedding our adolescence clothing and like rebirthing essentially this new brand. But I always remember in 2001 at Australian Fashion Week how they let down 200 live mice
Oh
down
my
the
God, I
runway.
remember that too.
That's sort of like challenging norms, I guess,
think
as
that's
a
when
brand.
I wore my Sassenbide rats,
The rats.
like leggings.
I think that's when they would have launched the rats.
Probably.
But doing things like that, I just think, is a cool thing for a brand to do. And they've always maintained like that gritty, underground, grungy essence, despite being commercialized. Like you said, you saw them in New York with Barney's or whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They've managed to straddle both.